have to start over. Oh, I'm going to have to roll up this yarn again and make it into a ball.
Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe and like. This is Scooby.
This is a cross in a granny square, and it has beautiful filigree work going across here like a cross. I really like these cross in a granny squares, and I added a nice border to the top, and I made a Kleenex box cover, and I do have a video on how to make this Kleenex box cover on my YouTube page, Tiffany's Crafts. With making a cross in a granny square, which is often also called Celtic cross square, is I began by making an alternative ring, and I chained 6 and I slip stitched to the 6th chain to form a small loop. Now this granny square has 4 rounds, and it's about 5.5 inches, also 13.9 centimeters. The most important thing about making a cross in a granny square is where you're placing your double crochets when making each round, from round 1 to round 4. And when I made this cross in a granny square, when I was placing my double crochets, I was double crocheting in the post of the previous round instead of crocheting it into the stitch, into the V part of the stitch. And the reason why I did that is so all of these filigree spaces, these holes in here, would all line up. See how this row of filigree spaces matches the row above and up higher with each round. And if you were to crochet these into the stitches instead of the post, it's not going to be even, and you'll have like a space here, and then the next round your space will be off a little bit. Also, at the end of each round when you're slip stitching, you need to slip stitch it at the first chain from the previous round, because if you don't, you're going to have space. So instead of having 2 spaces at the top here, you're going to have 3 spaces. It's going to appear as a 3rd space. So if you want 2 spaces over here, you're going to want to slip stitch at the first chain from the previous round, and I also slip stitch at the top on the chain of 3 from each round, because it kind of closed the square and made it look more square looking. And you can always block your squares as well if you feel that the square doesn't look exactly in the shape that you want to. I did not have to do that at all, blocking it. I was very pleased with the way that this square turned out. And I do have a video on how to make this Kleenex square, this Kleenex box, at my website, Tiffany's Crafts, along with a video of how to make this edging, a more detailed video. We are going to make a cross in a granny square, and it has 4 rounds, and when it's done it should be about 5.5 inches or 13.9 centimeters. So we're going to start with an alternative ring. So we are going to make a slip stitch, and we are going to chain 6 . And if I'm going too fast or too slow for you, you can change the speed in the video to go faster or slower, whichever you prefer. So we chain 6, and then we're going to make an alternative ring. I prefer an alternative ring over a magic ring for this cross in a granny square. So for round 1, we're going to chain 3, and this is going to count as our first double crochet. And then we're going to work 15 double crochet into the ring, and then we're going to slip stitch into the first double crochet at the beginning of the round. We are not slip stitching in the chain of 3, but in the first double crochet. And I will see you at the end of this round. I am at the end of round 1, and it's time for me to slip stitch into the first double crochet. So you have to locate your chain of 3, go beyond the chain of 3, which is right here, and go into the first double crochet. And I'm not going to be slip stitching into the stitch, which is right here, of the first double crochet. No, I'm going to be doing this into the post, which is located right here where my thumb is. So I'm going to slip stitch in here. Okay, and that is the end of round 1. Round 2. The pattern is chain of 3, which counts as the first double crochet. Then we're going to do 2 double crochet in this same stitch. Chain 2, skip 1 stitch. 1 double crochet in the next DC. Chain 2, skip 1 stitch. 1 double crochet into the next DC. From there, we're having a repeat of a pattern, which is 3 double crochet in the same double crochet, chain 2. Skip 1 stitch, 1 double crochet into the next double crochet, chain 2, skip 1 stitch, 1 double crochet in the next double crochet, and that repeats that twice. And at the end, we're slip stitching in the first chain of 3 from the beginning of the round. That's going to close up the square, and then we're going to I'll do a second chain of 3 in the third chain from the beginning of the round. And at the end, the square should be approximately 2.5 inches, which is 6.3 centimeters, depending on how loose or tight you crochet. So this round 1 has been completed. And I always use a stitch marker at the beginning of the rounds to help me out there. And we want to make sure that we're going to be double crocheting into the stitches to make sure that all of our stitches align up. Instead of concentrating on working on this stitch here, we're going to be working into down in here, which is like similar to the post. So we're going to begin by chaining 3. Okay, so we chained 3. Now we're going to do 2 double crochet in the same stitch, which is actually in the post down in here. That is the whole key of this whole project, is to be doing your crocheting into the post. So this chain counts as the first double crochet. Now we're going to do 2 double crochet in the same stitch, which is down in here. If you crochet into the stitch instead of in the post, when you get further on into the square, your filigree work is not going to line up. Okay, so we have that completed into the stitch. Now, whenever you see in our project chain of 2 and skipping a stitch, that's going to be the filigree, the spaces, the holes in the project. So we're going to chain 2. Now, when we skip a stitch, we're actually skipping a stitch. We're not looking into the post. So this is the next stitch here. This V, that's what we're skipping. And we're going to DC double crochet into the next post, which is right here. It's right next to this previous stitch that we skipped. So when we're double crocheting US terms, we're going to go into the post here. So it looks like this from the top and that from the side. Okay, and we're doing a double crochet. Okay, now we have our first side. Now we're going to, now let's look back at what we did. This cluster is going to be considered as a corner. Knowing that our square has 4 corners, we're going to have 2 sides in between each corner. And that's what the whole square is for all of the rounds. 4 corners, 2 spaces. So we just completed our first space. And then we're going to just repeat what we just did. We're going to chain 2, skip 1 stitch, and 1 DC double crochet into the next double crochet. And that's going to give us our second space. Now we're going to repeat that. So we're going to skip this stitch, which is right here, and we're going to look for the next double crochet, which is right here, and we're always going to be crocheting into the post for all the rounds. Okay, so there's our 2 spaces. And now that we did our 2 spaces, we're going to do another cluster, which is going to act as a corner. So our next step is, because we're doing round 2, when we do the double crochet clusters, which is thought of as the corner, they're always going to be 3 double crochet. Now it says 3 double crochet in the same double crochet that you're working in. So we're working in this double crochet where we finished off. Now we're going to do 3 more double crochet in here. And that's very important to do that, because if you looked for the following double crochet, you would have space, and it would appear as 3 spaces instead of 2. Here's 1 and then 2. So you're going to want to do 3 double crochet in here where you're already working at. I'm using my thread. My yarn is called Big Twist Vivid. I think the color is called Cream. Okay, so now that we have done this, we have our 3 double crochets, and now we're going to do 2 more spaces, and all of our spaces are going to be a chain or a skipping a stitch. So we're going to do 2, a chain of 2. We're going to skip 1 stitch, this V here, and we're going to look for our next double crochet, which is in here, right where our thumb is, and we're going to go into the post. And you can see how that looks when you're crocheting in the post. You have here your double crochet in here, and then you're going to want your yarn going through this double crochet, and that's what it's supposed to look like when you're working into it. And that's important because, again, all of your stitches are going to align up if you crochet into the post. So now you have your first space, and then we're just going to do that again. We're going to repeat what we just did. So we are going to do our chain, and then we're going to skip our stitch here, the V. We're going to go into the next double crochet, which is in here. Okay, so now we have our 2 spaces. Now, if you're looking at my pattern from here, you're probably going to see like an asterisk, which means repeat. And we're just going to repeat what we've been doing. We're going to do 3 double crochet into the same double crochet that we're already into, which is right here in this hole. Okay, so that makes our corner. Now we're going to work into our spaces. We're going to do 2 spaces. So we're going to do chain of 2, skip 1 stitch. The stitch that we're skipping is the V part. And then we're going to look for the next double crochet, and we're going to do a double crochet from our previous round into the post. Okay, so now we have our space. And then we're going to make a second space. Now, you would chain 2, and then you're going to skip this stitch, look for the next double crochet, which is right here, which is right next to that stitch that you're skipping. And you're going to double crochet into that post. Okay, so now we have 2 spaces, and we want to make another corner. So we're going to do 3 double crochets into this stitch that we're working into, which is right here where my fingernails are. We're going to finish this round, and I will see you at the end. And I'll show you how I slip stitch twice. So I'm just finishing up round 2, and I'm finishing up my last space. So I chained of 2, and we are nearing the end where we have the chain of 3 here. So we're going to go into the stitch right before the chain of 3. So we're going to go into here, and we're going to do our double crochet. Okay, so now that we have finished that, here is our chain of 3 right here, and we're going to slip stitch into the first chain of 3, which is right here. That's going to close the square up. Now that's very important to do this with each round, because if you don't, it's gonna look like you've got a hole. That's why you have to do this at the first chain. So you have your two in review, you have your 2 spaces right here at the end, and we made the slip stitch right here. If we had made the slip stitch at the top of the chain, you would have had another space, and it would have appeared like 3 spaces instead of 2. So now that we have done that, we're going to also chain at the top of the chain of 3. Well, it's just about right here. Or at the chain of 2, whichever you prefer. Okay, I usually do the chain of 3. Right now I think I'm doing the chain of 2. Okay, so now we have this done. For round 3, we're going to chain 3, which I've already done. And then we're going to do 5 double crochets in the next double crochet in the post. So we're going to look for our post for our next double crochet, which is right here. We're going to do 5. Remember, we're going to be double crocheting this into the post. Okay, so we're going to do 1 DC into the next DC. We're working into the cluster. So we're right here. We're going to go into this double crochet, the next one. Okay. Now we have finished and completed this part right here. So with round 3, we just completed 5 double crochet. Now we want to do 1 more double crochet in the next double crochet, which is right here. This is where we're going to be making this. Because we're following the pattern from the previous round. Now we know that we're going to make 2 spaces because we have 2 spaces in this previous round. And we want everything to line up. So we're going to chain 2. And we're going to do 1 double crochet into the next double crochet. So we've chained 2. We're going to go into here because that's the next double crochet, which creates our space. And we're double crocheting into the post, not into this stitch up here. Stitch would be up here. We want to do it in the, we want to crochet into the post so it all lines up. See how we have our stitches on the crochet hook, and see how it goes, stitches into the post here. That's exactly how you want that to look. Okay. So now when you look at this, you can see that it aligns correctly, your double crochet in with this post. Now we want to get into here and make this the second space. So we're going to chain 2. We're going to go into here and make our crochet, our double crochet in US terms, into the post. So now we have our 2 spaces and they're lined up. Now we're going to be looking at the cluster, which is actually the corner from the previous round, which is in here. We are going to do 5 double crochet into this stitch. And then we have 2 double crochets left from this cluster from the previous round, and we are going to create a double crochet in this stitch and in this stitch. That way there are stitches in each cluster of the previous round. So we're going to do 5 in here, 5 double crochet into, always working into the post for all of our stitches. Okay, so we just completed 5 double crochets in 1 stitch into here. Now we're going to double crochet in this post, and another double crochet into this post. And as you can see now, we have double crochets in each one of these from the previous round. Now we're getting ready to work on our spaces, and we want it to all align up correctly. So we want to continue with round 3, and we are just finished this cluster area where we did 5 double crochets, and then we did a double crochet in these 2 stitches, and then we want to continue working into the spaces. So we're going to we're going to chain 2, and we're going to go into this post in here and do and crochet a double crochet into it. Make sure that everything aligns up correctly, and it does. And so then we're going to want to chain 2 and finish the second space. into here, into this post, not into the stitch up here. Okay, now with looking at this cluster, we see that we have 3 in the previous round, which is actually a cluster or a corner. We're going to create 5 double crochet in here, and then after we finish that, we're going to do a double crochet in this stitch and in this stitch, and then we're going to create our sides. And we're finishing up our 5th double crochet here. Okay, now we're going to go into this stitch, the next double crochet into the post, and we're going to crochet a double crochet from into the previous round, and we're going to continue to do that again into this double crochet from the previous round. Now when we look back upon this cluster that we have done, or the corner from the previous round, we can see that each double crochet has a stitch going across here. Okay, and then we're going to get ready to do our sides. So we're going to just keep repeating this pattern. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to go into here and chain 2, and we're going to go into here, and make sure it all lines up. So now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to go into here, into the next double crochet. Now the next double crochet from the previous round, we're going to make 5 double crochets into here. Okay, now we have 5 done in here in this double crochet. Now we're going to do a double crochet in here, a double crochet in here.
What do you call sleeping puppies? Hush puppies.
Round 4 for our cross and gray square. We're going to chain 3, which I already did, and I'd like to look at a little bit at this in the previous round, in round 3, this corner that we did. What we're going to do is we're going to chain 3 and we're going to double crochet into the next 2 double crochets. So we're going to double crochet into this double crochet and this one. Then into the next one, the third one, we're going to do 5 double crochets into here. Now we have 3 remaining double crochets left into this cluster corner. And in each of these 3, we're going to do a double crochet. This one, and in this one. And then we're going to do our 2 sides. And we're going to do our 2 sides as we had done before in the previous rounds with our chain of 2 from here so let's begin this. So we're going to do our chain of 3, which I've already done, which is right here. And we're going to double crochet into the next 2 double crochets from the previous round, which would start us here. Right into this post. We're always going to be double crocheting into the post to make sure everything lines up. So we're going to double crochet into the next double crochet that we already have made from the previous round. Now we're going to do 5 double crochet into here, our next double crochet from this previous round into the post area. I like to call it the post, not the stitch. Just make sure everything lines up. All these 5 double crochets are into the same spot. Okay, this is our 5th double crochet. Now we're going to do a double crochet into the next 3 double crochets from the previous round. So we're going to do one here, and in this one, and then in this one. Okay. We just finished this cluster area, and we are getting ready to crochet the sides now. And we're going to be doing a chain of 2, and it's very similar to the last round as far as making our sides, make sure everything aligns up. So we're doing a chain of 2. We're creating a double crochet into the post of the next double crochet. Okay, now that we have that, we are going to chain 2, and we're going to do a double crochet into the next double crochet from the previous round into the post. So now these 2 sides are done, and you can see how it all lines up real nice. All these 3 rounds together. Now that we have finished these sides, we're going to double crochet into the next 3 double crochets from the previous round. So we're going to do a double crochet here, and 1, 2, and then 3. Then we're going to do 5 double crochet into here. And then we're going to do 3 double crochet into the rest, and then create a side.